What's up, guys? Welcome back to Engine25 Reviews. Always glad to have you here. Today we're talking about one of my personal favorites, the new season of Stranger Things, specifically Stranger Things season 4. Um, it premiered early May, looks like May 27th, Memorial Day weekend, with 7 episodes, and then the last 2 episodes just premiered last weekend on July 1st, 2022. And it's pretty crazy this season. And I have a regular guest with me, Miss Catherine Burrell. How you doing today, Katy?
I'm good. Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah, Katy is real smart, and we're gonna talk about some Stranger Things. First of all, Katy, I'm curious, like, what is how do I want to phrase it? What's your like background with 80s movies? Like, how do you feel about E.T. and like 80s slasher movies and that kind, do you have a do you have a spot in there for good old 80s cinema?
Oh yeah, of course I do. But it makes me laugh that you started off with E.T. because it's actually quite a funny, I think it's funny now, but I say yes, but I feel like when I say this, you're gonna say no, you can't say that because I've actually never seen E.T. all the way through. And that's because I had all my cousins were older than me growing up. Then we would hang out.
Unrelated kind of funny note. We had another guest, Wesley, who's been on the show once before, and his favorite movie is E.T., which is why. But he fell through last minute, and he would be very disappointed to hear you say that.
I know, and I feel like whenever it comes up, because I talk films all the time, like it's what I do, and people are just like, really? But when I must have seen it at a very, very young age because it scared the living daylights out of me. E.T. And I feel like when I say that, people are like, really? But from like a 4 or 5 year old's perspective, and I just remember being really freaked out by like the government agents looking for them,
that's the thing, like
being in quarantine,
and not scary at all. All the creepy government guys in suits and like hazmats, and yeah, that's all terrifying.
Yeah, all of that was really scary, and I just remember like the scenes, like when they're like quarantined or whatever in isolation, which now are very relevant terms, but like to a 5 year old and 1999, 2000, like that was really scary to me. And I remember like the one scene of like the boy and E.T. like looking super sick, and it just scared me. It scared me. But yes, I do have a nice sweet spot for 80s cinema in my heart for sure. For sure. I mean, it was a revolutionary era of filmmaking. That's the era of the blockbuster.
Yeah, I would say like the first like blockbuster as we would think of it today is probably Jaws, but like I would agree, like it took a while to kind of take off and become the thing. You know what I mean? Or
did Jaws come out before or after Star Wars?
Jaws was 77, Star Wars was or no, Jaws was 75, Star Wars was 77.
Then it must have been Jaws.
Yeah. And Jaws was like a big summer movie, and it was the thing that summer. It was the thing everybody was talking about. It got nominated for Best Picture, which is wild. And then Star Wars became a thing, but like Star Wars took its time to catch on because like a lot of people didn't believe in Star Wars even after it was already made. Like it was hard to get it out the door, and then
really high concept.
Yeah. And then once, word of mouth for Star Wars was everything, and it would certainly become like the modern blockbuster for sure.
But, yeah.
They kind of like pointed the 80s in the right direction, and then the 80s is almost like its own thing. Like the music and the movies and the fashion. It's like
I didn't appreciate it for what it was when I was growing up, really, but like, going to school for, film and learning more about it and knowing what I know now, like they're so good. I mean, you've got Back to the Future, you've got Terminator.
Back to the Future, some may say is a perfect movie.
Some do say. mean, like you've just got so much in the era, and it's so rich of
Aliens,
culture. Yes, yes.
Indiana Jones.
Oh my god.
And also relevant to this conversation, Nightmare on Elm Street, the rise of the slasher movie.
Yes. I mean, the 70s, yes, but the 80s, went all in on it.
Yeah,
sure.
again, some of the seeds for these things happened a little bit earlier, but they really became like they grew into the pop culture zeitgeist the way we know them, like in the 80s.
I feel like that's one of the things that Stranger Things does so well, is that even if you don't pick up on it, there are a lot of those zeitgeisty kind of things that do predate the series that come up every once in a while. And it just reminds you that all of these references are embedded in that culture,
Absolutely.
that we're seeing.
I'm totally the guy. I'm sitting next to my wife while watching the show. We both love it, but I'll be like, Dustin has a Jaws poster on his wall. So like, I'm like pointing out all the things.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons became really popular in the 80s, or so I hear. I played a lot in college.
I hear. I've never played, so that's your side of the conversation, buddy.
Yeah, no worries. It's a lot simpler now, and that I tried like old school D&D once. It's too much math. This is like,
that is my kryptonite. Yeah. Math. Don't ever ask me to do math.
I want to fight cool monsters. I don't want to do math.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. So tell, what did you think of Stranger Things when it first came out? Like,
well, actually, I didn't get on the Stranger Things train until season 2. Okay. I think. So I binged seasons 1 and 2 all at once.
Okay. And how did that work for you?
It worked really well, actually, because I had been hearing about Stranger Things, and I was just like, doesn't look like it's for me. And I just never got into it. I mean, I was also trying to like finish college, so
fair.
There was that. Yeah. And so I don't know. I just never got around to it. And then a couple years later, I think like right before season 3 came out, I was like, let me watch this. I think season 3 looked really good to me in the trailer. So I was like, yeah.
Season 3 is pretty good.
Yeah, I think so.
And it was interesting, like, I think they expected people to like it. I don't think Netflix or the Duffer Brothers intended or expected it to take off the way it did. Like that, the first season, like that could have been it, and it would have been like a great miniseries. Like it's because the first season wraps up really cleanly. They beat the monster. At 11 kind of disappears, but they rescue Will from the Upside Down. They beat the monster. Everything seems okay.
A very contained story.
Yeah, and the other seasons, I would say, are more open-ended toward the end than the first season was. But no, like the Stranger Things, it was the biggest thing on TV for a while, and it might be the biggest thing again. Like certainly the merchandising. Like,
now, yeah.
I'm going to be honest. We'll get to season 4 in more detail, but like I was really trying to get a Hellfire shirt before we did this podcast.
I'm sure.
And it didn't work out. Yeah, especially after that finale.
Oh my god, yeah. I think it's definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest thing right now. We live in such a weird world now, especially like having all the streaming that we all did during COVID. It seems like things come out one after the other now. But people have anticipated this season in a way like we haven't really before. I mean, I know that Disney Plus especially has been releasing episodes weekly, but I don't remember ever having this kind of break between episodes or like releasing part of it first and then part of it.
The Netflix, a lot of people like the Netflix model because you can just sit down and watch the show or whatever. And I'm probably said it on the show before. That makes it kind of like a flash in the pan for the most part, and Netflix pumps out so much content now that the event series has kind of just faded away for the most part. Like, but when there's a new Marvel or Star Wars thing on Disney Plus, like they advertise it ahead of time, and it's like it's an event when it's coming up, even though they release episodes weekly. In my opinion, the counter to that method is if you're going to put everything out weekly and make us wait, then every episode has to be good, but it means that the
Yeah.
show stays in the conversation for longer.
Yeah.
If that
Yeah.
makes it, but like a bad episode can turn off a lot of people. Whereas if it's all just out and you can binge it, you're like, that was just okay, but you can still press play again and hope it gets better.
Right. Right.
But yeah,
there's
so
a lot of
go ahead.
Communication and risk assessment going on with how they want to play out the story.
And Netflix is weird that Netflix doesn't like advertise that far ahead or whatever. And coming into season 4, I was like kind of I knew we loved it, but I was like worried that would I be over it this time? Like, I don't know.
I was afraid of that too,
Yeah,
because it took me a long time to get through the first couple of episodes. And then I was like, okay, play them one after the other,
You know what?
Even though they were really good.
Go ahead.
Even though they were really good, yeah. I don't know what it was. I just had a really hard time getting through them until it really started.
I actually through April and May, I did a rewatch of the whole show. And it's like about the third or fourth episode in the season 1, I'm like, all right, no, this is legitimately great television. And I had, I think I had seen the first season twice. I had not seen I'd only watched 2 and 3 once before. When they first aired or whatever. So it's, yeah, leading in, I was really excited. And I remembered not liking season 2 very much. And then when I watched it again, season 2 is great. It's just that one episode that has nothing to do with anything. Where Elle goes and meets all the superheroes.
Oh yeah, that was.
That was like weird. It's not related to anything else that's going on, and it kind of soured me to the plot. But then like season 3 is incredible, and there's all like the weird. They really look into adolescence in season 3 and all the awkwardness and all the sexual tension and all like all the things.
Yeah.
Growing up is weird, man. Like
that's what I kept thinking too. I was like, oh God.
I don't know that I'm all the way there, but it's just like reliving a lot of things that I don't care to almost. It's 3.
I kind of noted that, I made a note before we started about this season really raising the stakes in every way. And I think that comes from also raising the awareness and the tension that these kids have grown up, like these are the same kids that started in season 1. And I don't think we've seen that kind of on screen growing up since I think like maybe Harry Potter. And that was pretty that was unprecedented at that time to watch kids grow up doing the same series.
When they started making Harry Potter, like they thought that they were going to use the kids for 3 years and recast everybody. Like then I guess they eventually realized there wouldn't be enough actors in England, but that was and they lucked out like almost the way Stranger Things did. Like you can cast an 11-year-old who is a good 11-year-old, but you don't know that they're going to grow into a great performer. They're Harry Potter lucked out. Stranger Things really lucked out, and so did like Stephen King's It. They found a crop of incredible young actors who, ironically, one of whom is Finn Wolfhard. But probably not ironically. That's probably the reason why. But
they were like, we want that.
you don't. You can't, when you cast a child, you can't know where they're going to go. You're like, it's easy to take a 40-year-old actor who's been in 20 movies and say, all right, they're going to give me a great performance. There's no way you can know that about a kid. Even if they give you one great season, they might get old, they might grow up and get awkward, or who knows what, it's.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I don't think they could have really foreseen the way that Millie Bobby Brown kind of exploded on the scene. And I mean, it was warranted because she was great in the first season as like an 11-year-old, and she's been consistently good since then. I've seen her in 1 or 2 other things, and I thought she was great. But I will note that these kids are all very Gen Z, and that's the one thing that keeps me distant from them. I'm just like, I don't get.
You're not
get
wrong. Like, and anyone who's younger than me is basically a child, or like younger than my wife. No offense to you, Katie, because you're a few years behind us, but it's like,
I
um,
am.
yeah, and also when my wife turned 30, she was like, okay, great, I can play a teenager on TV now. Um, and it's one thing that television has always cast older actors as teenagers, and
Mhm.
it's like, to be fair, like for a number of reasons, Stranger Things always takes a little bit longer to produce, and then the pandemic happens, so we're over a year later than
Yeah.
they even intended for it to come out, etc. So the
Yeah.
teenagers are no longer teenagers, but like, they were cast very young, and they've been very lucky because they've all bloomed into very talented people. Like Sadie
Yeah.
Sink really shines this season as
Oh,
Max.
yeah.
Um,
That's what I said. I made a note and I said Sadie Sink MVP carries the season.
big time.
I mean,
Like, and she had a lot going on in season 3 too, like with Billy.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so let's move on to some just general thoughts about season 4, and then I'll pop the spoilers and we can talk about whatever you want. How
Okay.
did you, now that we've seen both parts of it, all 9 episodes of season 4, what'd you think?
I loved it. I thought it was so well done. I thought it was integrating culture and references and story in such a way that made so much sense because they're really just working off of like archetypes from the very beginning with, the Dungeons and Dragons themes and lore and all that. And so I feel like it's all coming together really cohesively, even though I'm wondering at how much of that was pre-planned by the creators of the show and what was just kind of I don't want to use the word slapdash because it's not right, but slapdash together, how much they had to kind of use their own plans to
I
create something cohesive.
I want to say between, like, leading into season 3, maybe, they said, Netflix renews us year by year, so we don't know how long we're going to go, but we have like
Mhm.
they said we have 5 seasons of material, and that was 4 years ago or whatever, but before season 3 came out. So and it looks
Okay.
like they're going to make their 5 seasons, and I don't know how thickly that each season going forward was plotted out at that point, but they kind of
Mhm.
knew where they were going to end
Okay.
up, at least, or where they wanted to go
So that's kind of a
if they got that
demarcation
far.
line.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that makes total sense. And I think that once they had that green light to kind of pre-plan a little bit, I think they've done it so well in the way that they integrated the storylines that they have in this season were just they built them up well to carry the whole season through and didn't waste anything, which I thought was really um, that's hard to do. So
It is,
kudos.
and it's especially, this season, the entirety of this season is like the third act of a movie. And the reason I
Yeah.
say that is because the whole thing, for whatever 14 hours or whatever these 9 episodes are, there are like 3 or 4 planes of action happening at the same time the entire
Yes.
time. And it's
Yes.
at the end of season 3, everyone kind of went off on their separate ways. Like Hopper disappeared. It turns out he was shipped to Russia, which you found out in the trailer, so that's not a spoiler. And then Winona Ryder, Miss Byers, and Will and Elle, they moved to California, and the
Mhm.
other kids were left in Hawkins. Um,
Hawkins. Yeah.
And then early in this season, Elle kind of goes off and does her own thing for a while with
Hmm.
Paul Reiser. So it's like the entire time there are 3 or 4 groups of people all doing their own thing, and every episode like has building action for all of those storylines. Like, and that
Yeah.
is a really impressive feat that it didn't become just tedium.
Yeah. Which I think maybe was why I had a hard time adjusting to that at the beginning of the season. But like I said, once it took off, I was in it and I understood. I think the point where I really got invested was early on with Max's plot line. And so once that kind of started to gear up, I was invested.
Nice.
Because Sadie Sink is the MVP.
True facts. You're not wrong at all. And I gotta say, I love this season too. It's very like by far the most mature and like complex, but it's growing up with its cast in really smart ways, and it's like Stranger Things is really about like stolen childhood. Or lost childhood. In the case of Elle, it was taken from her, but also, it's the other kids are having to grow up much faster than they should have to. And it's
well, I mean, they even comment on that in the in something that Steve says. I mean, I'm not really spoiling anything, but he does mention in a kind of a throwaway line that he has a kid experience with that lot. Like he's always like hurting around. And I thought that was such a kind of like nod to that kind of situation where even though the stakes are rising and everything's getting more mature, these kids have been forced to grow up. And then there's their older siblings and older friends are the ones who are taking on those quasi somewhat parental roles in some ways.
Absolutely, like Steve and Nancy, and then Eddie to a degree, the new character Eddie Munson,
and even
awesome.
Robin.
Maya Hawke, who was stupendous in the last season and is even better now.
So
on that note, I'm gonna hit the spoiler button.
Let's go for it. There's so much.
There's so much to talk about. Eddie, man, okay. So first of all, they were kind of telling you something bad was going to happen to Eddie early on. Like for the new characters on these shows, they don't tend to last. Particularly this, they added Bob in season 2, the Sean Astin.
So sad.
Yeah, who he was gored by a Demogorgon, and then season 2 they also introduced Max's family and her older brother Billy, and Billy becomes like a major antagonist in season 3, and then he gets torn to bits, and then Eddie, who's like we mentioned the Hellfire Club. He's in charge of this new D&D club that some of the guys have joined, particularly Dustin. And Eddie is awesome. And he's definitely it's got this cool older brother vibe. And Ed, everybody thinks he's cool because he's a senior, but he's hanging out with the younger kids, and he plays guitar.
He's also like a 3-time senior. He's not supposed to be there.
You're totally right. The only thing I didn't like about Eddie was his hair. It seems like he needed to wash it.
His hair. I loved it. I thought it was the most 80s thing about the whole thing.
He looks like he belongs in an 80s hairband. And it's absolutely intentional. That doesn't make it okay. But so Eddie has first of all, he more than one point during the season he talks about being a hero, and then right in the last episode everybody is going off to do their thing, and Eddie says what does he say? He's like, what is it, we're not heroes, or we don't look like heroes, or something like that. And it's him and Dustin go off to be the diversion, and he plays master of puppets. I was just like, here. Do you like Metallica?
I do, but I am not well versed. But I do know what you're talking about.
You're one of those people who thinks like Enter Sandman is what Metallica is. Sure. I don't know. I shouldn't assume, but no, yeah. So they climbs up on the roof of the thing, and he starts fretting that guitar. It's like, dude, are they doing Master of Puppets? No way. And it's it starts with just the guitar, and there's no way he's playing. There's no way the actor's really playing the riff. But Metallica is it attracts all the bat things, and then Eddie
the demo bats.
The demo, that's what they called them. And then Eddie runs off to try to protect Dustin, and then Eddie gets gored by the demo bats. and it was very upsetting for me.
Yeah, and Dustin's just stupid enough to go back. Like, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
like he went to
That
go.
was like a classic 80s movie trope thing. It's like, dude, why'd you go back? He's dying for you.
Yeah, just keep running.
Like, no, you deserve to die after that, Dustin. I'm sorry. I love Dustin, but come on, man. Come on. Anyway, yeah, he was great. And speaking of the music choices throughout the season are just spectacular.
Kate Bush.
I mean,
getting so. You know what?
yeah.
Do you think the Kate Bush song would have been featured so heavily had they released the whole season at once and not had like the not had the big reveal in that one episode with Max?
Yeah,
like
I think it would.
Because when the trailer came out for part 2, I was like, oh, they're mixing the Kate Bush song with the music. They're running up that hill song. I was like, yeah, I'm inclined to think that this trailer got completely reworked in between this parts 1 and 2.
No, I think I don't think so because they did use that song again in the finale, didn't they?
No, yeah, the song comes up again in the finale, but know, they're 30 days apart, and that's not a lot of time, but it's enough for somebody to go like
for them to do that.
Yeah.
But I feel like the way that they mixed the song and how to integrate it with the score and just like the imagery and the way it wrapped up and the beats that they were hitting, I felt like it was very intentional. Especially because there is that little mention of what's his name, basketball asshole, breaking her freaking cassette player.
Yeah. Dude, fuck
so I feel like it was very intentional in that moment. And to answer your question, yeah, I think it still would have been impactful just because the pacing of that sequence and the build up to it in that first half of the season is just so good.
And Sadie
I mean,
sings.
I don't know what to say. Yeah, I mean, it's just done so well that they knew exactly what moments they wanted to hit and knew exactly how they wanted to manipulate the pathos of the moment, you know. So I feel like that the Kate Bush musical selection would have hit hard no matter what. No matter what. It's just too good, man.
You're not wrong.
They just used it too well.
Kate Bush, like she is generally does not license her music. You know, she's one of the few artists these days that still owns their own catalog, and her songs don't come up that often because she keeps them very, very close. So it's you know, she trusted the Duffer Brothers, and apparently it's done very well for her. You know, and it's been on everybody's Spotify playlist the last month and a half.
Yeah, she's like, I'm making bank. Not only is she making bank from that, but I'm sure they paid her very handsomely to use it twice. And not only to just use it twice, but to mix it with their own musical score.
Absolutely.
So, you know.
So well, let's roll it back to the beginning. We're talking about the ending a lot. About a week before the season came out, they released like the first 8 minutes, I think.
Okay.
Everything leading up to that big reveal with Elle, who was digitally de-aged.
Yes.
You know, and they kind of made us think Elle may have been responsible for the deaths of the other, I don't want to call them experiments, the other children, the other children like 11 who have the superpowers.
I don't know what to call them either.
Yeah, it seems like a mean word considering their circumstances. But yeah, we're led to believe early on that Elle may have been keeping this secret this entire time, that she actually murdered all the other children, which is why we've never seen any of the other experiments. Mm-hmm. There I go again with the word experiments. We've never seen any of the other patience. Patience is a good word.
Patience, yeah. Yeah. But
you know,
so and then it kind of gets flipped on its head, surprisingly.
It does. But they kind of let us sit with that for a while, and Elle is going through teenager things, right? She's at a new school and everyone thinks she's weird, and she doesn't have her powers right now because she got infected by the mind flare in the last season. So she's just like threatening people and getting in fights and doesn't really know how to navigate life as a real teenager. And in her defense, life as a teenager kind of sucks.
It really does suck. And I can only imagine that it would suck all the more if I had been, kept as a patient in some research facility and then, manipulated to create an alternate dimension. That would be rough.
Yeah. Not ideal.
I don't feel like anybody could really recover from that.
And I was like that goofy nerdy kid, but luckily I got ignored. I never really got the bully thing, even though I probably would have been like the perfect target. But yeah, so Elle has a rough go of it the first few episodes here, and then she gets in a big fight at the roller rink, and then that kind of gets her a lot of negative attention, whatever. And then our good buddy Paul Reiser, who I will never learn to trust again after what he did to us in Aliens. And then I posted something like that on social media, and they're like, yeah, but what about every other movie Paul Reiser's in other than Aliens?
But what about everything else? But you know what? It's iconic.
It really is. And he calls her kiddo a lot. You ever seen the movie The Diner?
No.
Oh, it was a movie with Paul Reiser, and they spend a great deal of time in a diner. And I
really?
I couldn't not point out the fact that he has this heart to heart with Eleven in the diner. I was like, all right, you're aiming this directly at me. Who knows? And they're probably not even. They're aiming it at people who are actually alive in the 80s.
Though.
Yeah,
they probably are though, because they've kind of added little things like that in throughout. I felt like, one of them for sure. Well, but what I'm saying is that they've added in little homages to their actors throughout the season, Winona Ryder and Alien with those test subject demo dog things and the Russian prison. And I thought I might be reaching here, but at one point in the season, Hop and oh my God, why can't I remember Winona Ryder's name in the series? She's just Winona Ryder.
Miss Byers. That's what whenever I refer to the characters, because I've known them since I was 6. It's all it's Winona Ryder or Paul Reiser or Matthew Modine.
Right.
It's never the characters' names. I don't even.
Right.
Is it Brenner? Does Matthew Modine play Brenner? Is that his name?
Yeah, I think so. Oh my God, but what is Winona Ryder's character's name? They say it all the time, and all I can see is Winona Ryder. I need to know. Winona Ryder.
Her last name is Byers.
Byers, Joyce. I know that. Joyce.
I'm looking at the wiki.
I was trying to look it up. Joyce. Yeah, so there's at one point when they're in Russia when Joyce and Hop are both in those red, white, and blue jackets. And I was just like, how can I not equate this to Marvel and the whole Captain America rivalry thing that his character had, and the Black Widow, and he was in a Russian prison. That was just a coincidence, the whole Russian prisons thing. But I was just like,
it is and it isn't. They're
very skilled. And if they didn't want to put a red, white, and blue jacket on them and have us not think about Marvel, they shouldn't have done it. So I'm going to consider it a little Easter egg.
I hear you. No, and the Russia thing, it's Cold War nonsense. It's just, they're just very, at this point, they're making fun of the 80s as opposed to being all nostalgic about them like they were in the early seasons.
Yeah. Some of it, definitely. Yeah, but one of those
I've always wanted to go to the Soviet Union with Murray.
Right. With Murray. Oh my God, they really do though. And I just love the way that they do end up making what's his name that was on Game of Thrones friends with Hop in the prison.
Yeah,
I don't
the guy
remember
who
his
was
name.
the faceless dude. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I just, if I don't know their name, I'm just like, that's the guy from whatever. So I was just like, Game of Thrones guy in the Russian prison. Um, am I the only one that thought his Russian accent was like just okay? He
I
almost
don't
had
know.
the Spanish.
I want to say he's like Eastern European somewhere, but I'm not gonna find him.
He is from somewhere. I think he
Yeah,
might be,
because he had an
maybe not
accent on Game of
Eastern.
Thrones too.
Yeah. But I was like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't have a ear for Russian, so I'll reserve my comments. But I just love the fact that they ended up with a friendship between the Russians and the Americans and an 80s era drama. like, like you're definitely right. In some ways, they are definitely making fun of the 80s and some of that ridiculousness going on. Whereas before, it was just kind of like, of course, we're going to team them against the Russians because that's what the 80s are about. And now they're just like, all right, hold on. But I will say that all those Russia sequences definitely was giving me Red Dawn energy, like
Oh yeah,
original
it's
Red Dawn energy.
absolutely.
And they just, it's stuff like that. And they just keep giving uh, dialogue, but also visual references all throughout the season that just play so well. And they're so much a part of like our entertainment zeitgeist now that I feel like some of them are tropey, you know? I mean, they don't feel tropey here because they are used in such archetypal ways. And I think that's just really, really cool. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know a
it's
better
really
word. It's
smart
really cool.
on the
Yes.
production designers part.
Yeah,
It's
very
just
smart.
um
And I wrote down a note, just the parallels between Vecna or One or Henry.
Henry slash Vecna slash one.
Yeah. First of all, what a great reveal. I personally was not expecting Jamie Campbell Bower's
We
meek
we
willed.
figured it out like the episode before. We were like, all right, it was him that killed all the kids. We did not connect that he would be Vecna. You know, like
Right.
that's so
Yeah.
it's yeah.
All of it together. I was like, and keep in mind, I didn't stop when like the first part of the season was done and then had to wait. I watched it all the way through.
Okay.
With like breaks in between. I started
Right.
and it took me a while to get into it. And then I was like, all right, bam.
Yeah, well, I mean, we watched the 7 episodes Memorial Day weekend, and then
Yeah.
my wife was out of town for the 4th of July, or actually we were both out of town. She was out of town before that, and then anyway, the long story short, so we didn't watch it until we got home on Monday, and we just sat down for 4 hours and just like burned through it.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of I got it all at once, kind of like that.
Okay.
So it was just exciting for me to watch it unfold and not have to like really wait for anything, you know. But I just thought it's such a contrast between the two depictions of the character that Jamie Kimmel Bower plays. They could have so easily just gotten another actor to play
Absolutely.
Vecna, but they used Jamie Kimmel Bower in the two roles, and it works so well. I was a little apprehensive because I like saw a little bit of a spoiler, and I tried not to read too much into it, and I was like, "Is this the same character?" And I was like, "Oh, it is the same character," but then I was surprised that it was the same actor. And then once I knew, I could kind of see it, but I was like, "It's such a good job," and I
I'm
feel like
curious
Jamie
about the
Campbell.
voice. Is it
Mm,
did he contribute to the voice at all? Because it's definitely under
yeah.
like quite a bit of processing. But
It is, but Jamie Campbell is English,
yes,
so
it's because he's in
he
Harry Potter and several. He was in Sweeney Todd.
yeah, but I feel like he's been really waiting for like a really good role to come along. You know, they tried him in the they adapted a book series I had read a while ago now. It was called City of Bones, was the first book, and he was in that
Okay,
movie.
I have heard of it.
It flopped so hard. Flopped so hard. And then they ended up making a TV show that really didn't do that well about it too. But he wasn't in that. They completely scrapped that whole thing. And so I felt kind of bad for that. And so I was to see him do this role and have it be really popular and done so well. I was like, good for him. But the fact that he delivers two really compelling, very different performances is, I don't know, I've said it before, but it's like a pat on the back to this whole production team and the whole cast, because they've taken this concept that took the world by storm in season one and made it into something really artistic.
Absolutely.
And
You know, and that is a particularly on the Vecna side, like that is a thing that could very, very easily go very wrong. Like, you know, if you have to get, you know, you have to get the look right, but it's not just the look, it's the mannerisms and like how you move, and you have to get a voice that there's like sounds unique but scary but not tropey, you know. And that's we
I really enjoyed
you weren't on the Obi-Wan one, where you like we were talking about Darth Vader, right? And you know, and Darth Vader he has first of all, a really unique silhouette. Before you even look at what he looks like, just the shape of Darth Vader, you can see his shadow, and you know it's Darth Vader. You know what I mean? But it's also, you know, like it has he moves in a certain way, and he, you know, James Earl Jones gives a really unique voice, and it's like, not only is it low in timbre and and it's really intense, but it's also like Darth Vader always sounds very calm and very even, you know. And it's all those things together that make this entity that we know as Darth Vader. And if any one of them doesn't work, Darth Vader doesn't work. And it's the same with Vecna. You know, like, okay, if you watch some behind the scenes with Darth Vader, and then the voice that they have that they were recording on set, because you know it's voiceover, it's added after the fact. The voice of the actor, he's this like old like snarky British chap, you know, and it doesn't work. You know what I mean? So like the character immediately becomes like this comical thing. And you could even say the same thing about, let's say, Freddy Krueger, who, by the way, Robert Englund is in this season and is terrifying. He plays Victor Creel, who's Henry's father. But in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, it's the same thing. First of all, you know, they light him in a certain way, so it's hard to see him. He's always in the shadow, but you know, he's got this terrifying look and this like really intense, unique mannerism, and this really unique voice that is nothing like how the actor talks. And again, it's just this perfect storm of all the things. But in some of those later movies, even when some of the elements are consistent, it doesn't work. And it's, you know, there are decisions that lead to that. So my point is, if you don't, you have to know what the target is and know how all the pieces are going to fit together to get there, because we've seen both sides of it with Freddy Krueger, who's the same thing. He's an actor in makeup and he talks funny, and he moves in a certain way. And when it doesn't work, it's comical, but when it works, it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah. I feel like, there's so much potential for season 5 to push this Vecna Henry 1 villain into the stratosphere.
Absolutely.
And become something as iconic. Eventually, it takes time for icons to be icons, but you know, I think there's that potential. And I just props to Jamie Campbell Bower. That one, that's a lot of makeup. 2, the voices that he had to choose and refine for each character are a big part, I think, of what you were saying of, 1, establishing Vecna as a baddie, right? But also to kind of deter away from that assumption with the character of he's a nobody really for a long time, like the nurse, with somebody like that. So props. But also, I love that we started talking about Vecna, and then you brought up Darth Vader, because literally I have my Vecna as Michael Myers note with an arrow going, but 11 as Luke Skywalker. So I feel like Vecna really is the Vader to 11 Skywalker. I mean, and I've been looking stuff up, and it's the Empire Strikes Back parallels between Luke and 11 in this season are, one, purposeful, according to the Duffer Brothers, and
Almost
two,
certainly. They came out in the 80s.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, they did say, they were like, yeah, we took a lot of Empire Strikes Back for this. And then when you compare it, it's so there. It's just there. And it's like like I'm saying, like, I remember when I was in high school and I had an English teacher who made us analyze Empire Strikes Back for like archetypes of literature. and those different things.
It's a hard one to do because it's it's really the second act of a thing, and everyone loses. So it's it's probably like it's much harder to quantify Empire Strikes Back in that way than it would be to do like A New Hope, for example. I'm sorry, go on. But yeah, like it's
well, anyway, just in general, and so I don't know, but the way that the original Star Wars movies uses traditional archetypes to play off of, and then that was so brand new in that era, and the fact that the visual and storyline archetypes are still at play from those influences and those influences before them. I just love this tracking and recycling and homage to different archetypes and tropes that are used well in the
from
series.
A place of respect, and then they're using them in their own way, knowing that it's a thing we'll recognize. The Duffer Brothers are very good at taking this thing that we know and using it in a way that respects where it comes from, but also uses it in a new way that's interesting.
Yeah.
That, it's not exactly the same, but it's not so different that we can't tell what it is. It's like Stranger Things, it pulls from so much, but it's like it weaves it all together in its own very cool, very unique way.
And I feel like this could easily be a show that was made in the 80s, and you could watch it and you could keep up. And I think that's some of the cleverness and why it works as well as it does, because they really don't let, for the most part, a lot of other influences come into that. And so it just works. I mean, it feels like if I was around in the 80s and was of the age to, go to a Star Wars screening, and then I could go home and turn on Stranger Things for that weekly episode, I would just be like, oh yeah, that was from that Star Wars movie from 3 years ago. And just like, I don't get it.
I was watching The Boys the other day, and it's just like, all of this feels so timely, like literally right now. And I know this was written and filmed a year ago, but somehow it just lines up with today.
Yeah.
And that could it'd be weird to be in a room where, in a world where Stranger Things does that, but it's also unfortunately very weird to be in a world where The Boys does that. So that,
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say though, I think, I wouldn't say Stranger Things exclusively stays away from that, because, we have a whole, episode long arc for which character is it? Oh my God.
I have the cast list. Who's the actor?
I don't even remember. Oh my God. I'm blinking so hard.
It's been a long day for both of us people.
Will Myers.
Will Myers, yeah.
They have that whole episode long arc with Will where he's like, they're hinting, and they've hinted before, but it's almost explicit that they're hinting that he's not straight, right? And I feel like that's a very modern kind of storyline to include in such a tender, heartfelt, respectful way.
But I just feel like it in the time that this takes place, like people like, I almost said people like that, and that would be terrible. But LGBTQ folk existed, but the world was not nearly as welcoming of them as it is
Right.
today, obviously.
And so I think the way that they handle that content in the context of the show is, as you were getting at, like spot on. But just the fact that they felt or feel like they need to comment on it or hype that up for the show itself is one of those things that I feel like kind of transcends that timelessness of the narrative of the show. And I mean, that's fine, but because, they do that few and far between and they choose their moments to do that, to make comments on our current world.
Robin,
And there was,
right. She finally gets to hang out with that girl she's crushing on right at the end here.
Yeah. But also the other thing, and I was trying to think of this as I was going through, I was like, what was the other thing that reminded me of like current social commentary? And it was all the stuff surrounding the basketball team this season, from the guns to the mobs to the,
racist jocks.
Yeah, like that whole thing. I was just like, all right, I know who they're trying to comment about. Yeah. I was like, I think we all know who, they're trying to target with, I don't mean to sound insensitive, but gunslinging white boys.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You're not insensitive on my show. You're fine. And they're obviously, they're using their platform to make a statement. But that's fine. There are a lot of things in the world in the 80s and things in the world today that are all terrible and should be addressed.
But I feel like the addressing of it and just the way that they bring it in, and it's not a bad thing, but it's just those things that do transcend the suspension of disbelief.
It's not,
which is fine.
Well, it's not overbearing, and I think that's Stranger Things is very good at striking a tone, or this weaving a variety of tones together that somehow really work. Like that, for example, when we talked about Mad God, like we mentioned this like dark levity that would come up sometimes, but it's like this season of Stranger Things, a couple of times really punched the humor up quite a bit, like almost with sight gags and stuff. Like the moment where Murray just breaks out the karate and beats up a bunch of Russians, and then like at the end he's just screaming and blasting with the flamethrower. It's like Murray's the man.
Yeah, Murray's a badass.
And I can't even like just the whole concept that Murray and Joyce are on a plane going to Russia to rescue Hopper. It's just like the whole thing is absurd, but it's somehow just delightful, like the way that it's written in here. So it just,
I feel like that had to be like something that came out of a hat in the writer's room. It's like, so how do we do this? We take Murray and Joyce and we put them on a blank, a noun, a plane to blank, and then they go to blank, And I feel like it was just one of those like comedy of errors kind of situations where like you would get that in improv and then like see what you could do with it. Yeah, Joyce on the plane. Yeah, for sure. That's one of them. But they divide up the characters so well in the show, and I was really afraid that we were going to lose some of that ensemble characterization that comes in. But they handled that
thought too, especially like, remember earlier I was saying that happened so early, like the characters are all off on their own, doing their own thing, or each little group of characters, very early on, like from the jump, really. And that could be very tiresome. If it goes on for too long or isn't handled delicately, but somehow they get 9 episodes out of it. And the characters, like some
not
of the
only is it
merge and then they split off again and they go this and that, but like not everyone is all back together until the end of the finale, like after everything is resolved, and then we just get that really nice return to normalcy where everyone's back in Hawkins. But for 9 episodes, it's 9 episodes of the third act of a movie. Like it's
And not to mention that these episodes are long, and the finale is 2.5 hours. That is longer than most feature length
movies. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just like, how
are they going to keep it up? Keep this up? That's
Yeah. Also, how did they keep those threads going and keep it moving when every episode is at least an hour long? You know, wow, I cannot begin to fathom the length of their shoot for this entire season.
It had to be 6 months. I don't even know. They film in Atlanta, right? Or like really all over the Georgia, but
yeah. Well, they had to be in California for some of it, for the buyers being out in the desert and stuff like that. I mean, that's total California. So I feel like they're not only expanding, and to have like that government facility in the desert too. But all of that was on the interior on stage in Atlanta, definitely, and most of it in Atlanta. But yeah, I mean, the length of that shoot and to have to keep up all the COVID stuff in between all that, just logistically, what a headache.
Having been on set, and that's not what I do most of the time. We do rear projection for I'm not going to say what show because I'm on a podcast and I don't know if I'm supposed to say what show it is, but we do rear projection, and it's at a studio complex in Atlanta, and we do everything on the soundstage. And when on days that they need us, it's always me or my coworker or both of us, depending on complexity and what exactly is going on. But maybe one day an episode, if that. Often they go several episodes before they give us a call. But the COVID procedure is very intense, and you have to have two negative tests every 72 hours. So it's like you're Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you have to get a COVID test. And we don't do that outside of when we're doing the movies or doing the TV. So, it's like, okay, so Dynasty needs us next Thursday, or this other show needs us next Thursday or something. I just said the name of the show and I'm just going to let it go. That's okay. It's one of a few that we do. But yeah, so that means that we then have to get into testing cadence, and we have to go to this other site and get COVID tests constantly. And they're very strict about wearing your mask. And like, there's this, when we go to have lunch, like the tables are really spaced far apart, and it's to do that day in, day out would just be like really grating on the patrons.
Physically and mentally exhausting, and I mean, kudos. I mean, it's just insane. And in the case of Stranger Things, to be able to keep up a consistent story and over a long shoot like that and have it really work. I mean, they took their time with it and it paid off, even though I'm sure those constraints were also pressure.
Announcing ahead of time that your 9-episode season is like 16 hours of TV. Like people could be asking why, and that it's a risk, first of all, to do it, because if you don't get it right, then people will just be bored. But it's that they pulled it off.
And also, we got a trailer, or like a teaser trailer, I want to say in like 2020.
Yeah, it came out the last season 3, I want to say was like July 4th weekend 2019, and then early 2020 we get the just a few seconds of Hopper like scooping with a shovel in Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
And that was 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. But I remember that so vividly because I was just like, oh my God. It's like so good. It's so different from what they've seen before, just to see Hopper in that environment. But, it was just, from that trailer, I think we were all kind of hooked into it. And so I always thought from that trailer that, all right, so they must be done with that shoot, And so they're going to leave Russia pretty early on, right? No. Spoiler alert. They stay in Russia until the end of the finale. But yeah, so I don't know how they got all that to work, but they did, and kudos. And I do really like that. I'm looking at my notes here. I like that they were committed to changing that tone, and no matter what, we've talked about them raising the stakes and growing up with the kids and things like that. But the series definitely turned more into horror. It's not exclusively horror, but there are definitely horror elements and horror homages.
Absolutely.
And my favorite one is just Nancy just pummeling Vecna with her gun, and he falls out the window, Michael Myers style, and then they come down the porch and then he's not there.
Love it.
I mean,
it's like they look around and he's gone. Yep.
It's like you know exactly what they're referencing. You know it's there, but it's done in such a way that it's so satisfying.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And just I don't know, that whole sequence of like them trying to get to Vecna and Steve, Robin, and Nancy kind of going ham on that part. I was just like, I don't know. Like I love Robin from ever since she showed up. What was it, last season, season 3?
Yeah, she's season 3 at the ice cream shop.
Love Robin. Love it. I've kind of faltered on Nancy here and there, but Nancy.
Have we forgiven her for Barb? She's just like inside getting it on, really and Barb died.
No, it's not really her fault. Shit happens.
Barb just wanted to get home, just wanted to go, and she just wanted to get laid, so that's how it goes.
They were teenagers. I mean, is it a shitty thing to do to a friend? Yes. Could it happen to anybody? Yes.
All right, fair.
And so I really feel like Nancy could not have foreseen the consequences of that. It's just not. It's not her fault.
She didn't watch enough Slacker movies.
Apparently, but you know what? That's in line with Nancy pre season 1 finale. Pre badass Nancy era. She really just kind of like, I don't know, takes hold of the whole group as much as she can.
Right.
In this way, because they're all kind of separated. But with her little pocket, she's like, okay, so what am I going to do about this? And then she just kind of, no fucks are given, and she just goes for it. She's just like, I'll take care of it. And I just loved it. I loved the relationship that developed between Nancy and Robin this season. I felt like they really capitalized on that because they had the Max and 11 friendship to kind of fall on in the previous season.
Right.
But we obviously don't get that this season. And so for them to take Nancy and Robin, who are two kind of like opposing forces, and make them work well, is one, like good on the actors. Like obviously they get along. But two, very good economy of story. I felt like they used it well. And I don't know. It's just there's something about this season that just feels so cohesive, especially towards the end. And I think because they use so many references and kind of like iconic imagery, they're able to really pull off something that's one familiar, but also new.
I agree totally. I mean, that's really how I have described Stranger Things a very similar way in the past. Like, it's familiar and yet unique.
Yeah. And there's a reason things are called archetypes, because they resonate and they work, and they've been cornerstones of storytelling for thousands of years,
Absolutely.
And so they're using them to their advantage in a really interesting, unique way that also integrates cultural references and things like that. So I think that's why the series has continued to be so enthralling to so many people, and why people hop on the bandwagon, because they can see it developing,
So one more question to wrap us up. Do you think Max is going to be okay?
In the end, yeah. I feel like she's going to go through some really serious stuff. I feel like Elle's going to go through some.
I think she's going to be blind, but I think there's going to be some other. There's going to be a twist related to her blindness.
Well, she's the Han Solo of this story. So she'll come back at the towards the beginning of the next season, and then there'll be some kind of consequence of that they're going to have to work with, or some kind of discovery to work with from getting Max back. But I feel like she is the Han to Eleven's Luke. And would that make who would be Leia then? Which one of them is Leia?
Finn Wolfhard?
Yeah, I think so. Which is fine.
But probably Nancy.
Nancy, the Leia? Maybe. I don't know. If we're talking about the past, I don't know.
She usually knows what's going on.
But yeah, I feel like there's going to be Max will be fine, but there's going to be something that they're going to need to deal with or learn from regarding her resurrection. That's going to be important.
It's like remember, Will still having spent so much time in the Upside Down, Will still has like weird intuition, and he knows when things are about to turn bad and that kind of thing. So I think there's going to be some kind of result of that, or like some similar situation with Max, where she can, she's going to be blind or something, but she'll have some kind of superpower, or like sixth sense or something.
Doctor Strange and have the third eye.
Excellent. Probably, maybe not that, but
we'll see.
Maybe a metaphorical third eye.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much, Katy. Stranger Things season
Brandon.
4 is awesome. And if you're still listening, be sure to like and subscribe. Ring the bell down below. You can find actually Katy's over here. You can find Katy at catherineburrell.com. She writes some stuff on a blog, and it's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
There it is right there. And otherwise, thanks for watching, everybody. We will be back very soon with an episode about Thor: Love and Thunder, which I am very excited about. Until then, keep watching movies. Thanks, guys.